On today's show, designing Wi-Fi networks for 5 gigahertz. And my guest today is Wi-Fi industry legend Perry Correll of Xirrus. Join us right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Claus Hetting, and this is the TV show that brings you all the great stories from around the Wi-Fi industry and, of course, also all the great people. And today, it's my pleasure in just a moment to welcome Perry Correll of Xirrus. He is a legend in the Wi-Fi industry. He's been with us for many years, and I'm sure many of you out there will recognize him when we get him on in just a moment. So, all I want to say just before we do that is that don't forget that Wi-Fi Now, the conference, is going to London, UK this fall, October 25th to 27th, specifically in the great city of London. And you can already see all the details on wifinow.international. That's the new URL. And if you have any questions, just connect to me at klaus@wifinowevents.com. So that was it for my only announcement this week, and I'm very happy to introduce you, all of you out there, to my good friend Perry Correll, Chief Technologist of Xirrus. Perry, welcome to the show.
Klaus, thank you very much. I appreciate seeing you again. It's been some time, and thank you very much for inviting me to the show.
It's been a while, and you're coming to us from the beautiful part of the world called Merritt Island, Florida, right next to the Space Coast. That's right, eh?
Exactly, just inland of Cocoa Beach and just south of the launches.
I can tell you, I wish I was there, and we could probably spend a lot of time talking about all this space launches and stuff going on down there. But what I do want to talk to you about on this show is the issue of deploying and designing networks for 5 gigahertz, because I know you've been vocal in some concerns around how to get all of that right. But actually, before we get into that, I just wanted you to share with us just a few words about Xirrus, because for those of our viewers who are not familiar with Xirrus, just tell us what Xirrus is about.
Okay, let me just say a little bit about Xirrus. I've been with Xirrus for 10 years now, and Xirrus really is a leading provider of high-performance wireless networks, and that's kind of what our focus has always been. And we're all about the innovation and advancement of wireless solutions. And it didn't actually start with Xirrus. A little bit of our heritage. We actually go back to the Xircom days. So if you got a little bit of less hair like I do, you might remember the Xircom days. And back in the early 90s, they actually created the first access point. And that same team, actually, that Xircom was later sold to Intel, and that same team, the executive and engineering team, kind of rejoined to address the challenges of Wi-Fi going forward. Why that's important? Because if you look at about 2010 is really when the industry changed. 802.11 really came out. The first iPad was released, and that was 5 gig capable. Just shortly after that, the iPhone 5 became available, and that was also 5 gigahertz capable. And what happened is this started the momentum towards 5 gigahertz. And the great thing about that is Xirrus was engineering for 5 gigahertz even 5 years before, because what we saw what was happening. And so we said, in order to address this, you got to have smarter radios. So from the very beginning, we had multi-state, or what you called software-defined radios. And then it's about smarter networking services. Once again, software-defined radios, being able to do what's called band steering. If I've got a dual-state client, I want to get them on the 5 gigahertz radio. And the next step beyond that was what's called mode steering, which is something we call AC Express, which actually, once I got a bunch of people on a bunch of 5 gigahertz radios, I want to further separate them. I want to separate high-speed 5 gigahertz devices, 11AC, from lower speed, 11A or 11N, so it separates them out. And the final thing was smarter management, and Xirrus has gone through the cloud management functionality that you configure everything in the cloud, and then on site you just plug it in. No controller, no local configuration. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what Xirrus is all about.
All right, so Perry, there's been some discussion about the 2.4 gigahertz band being not suitable for enterprise-grade deployment anymore. I know that Apple and Cisco came out a while ago and more or less said, not in those exact words, but something to that effect. Do you agree with that? Is the 2.5 gigahertz band pretty much full and no longer useful?
Well, actually, that's a great question, and it's something I absolutely agree with, because if you think about it, as I said, Xirrus has been focused on this for a while. With the largest networking company and arguably the largest technology company adding their voices to it, it's obvious we're at the point that 5 gigahertz has to be your focus. 5 gigabits has to be where you're going to go. I have in my hands here actually a report from, I guess it was May, Google I/O had an event. And at that event, they had about 35,000 devices. And at one snapshot in time, there was about 12,200 devices on the network. And at that time, 12,175 were 5 gigahertz, 22 were 2.4. Now, this is a show where anybody shows up with everything. It's not less like super high-tech show. So the industry has obviously changed. And a couple of things you have to understand, and 2.4 isn't going away, but it's important to realize that 2.4 only has 3 available channels, 3 non-overlapping channels, where 5 gigahertz, depending on where you are in the world, has 5, 6, or 7 times that. And at the same time, 80, 90, 95% of new handheld clients, laptops, tablets, smartphones, they're 5 gigahertz capable. So it only makes sense to focus on that. I mean, if it was 5 years ago, I could say, yeah, you can balance the 2 out. But if you look what's happened in the industry, it only makes networking sense, financial sense, and business sense to build a foundation of 5 gigahertz, because that's what the clients have. If 95% of your clients are 5 gigahertz capable, you have to design your infrastructure that way.
Right. So what goes wrong in a situation like that? If there's that high percentage of 5 gig clients out there and they're not being connected to a Wi-Fi 5 gig service, what's going on in a scenario like that, and how can it be fixed?
Okay, there's actually a couple things going on. First of all, as strange as it may seem, there are a lot of people that aren't actually aware of how many 5 gigahertz devices are on the network. And this is something I just became aware of recently, because some management applications will tell you how a device is connected and their capabilities. Other devices just say how it's connected. And if it's just telling you that, it's not telling you that, this guy's connected on 2.4, but he should be connected on 5 gigahertz. Along with that is the issue that today, most networks are designed the way they were 10 years ago. Half the radios are 2.4, half the radios are 5. And it's important to realize your clients, laptops, tablets, smartphones, are relatively stupid. What they're going to do is they're going to connect to the radio that gives them the strongest signal. So if I see a 2.4 radio with slightly stronger RSSI signal strength than a 5 gigahertz, I'm going to join it. And even though had I joined the 5 gigahertz, I would have actually gotten better performance. Now, there's kind of 2 things happen there. First, in a mixed environment, you've got installers now that are turning off a bunch of 2.4 radios because they're not useful, which is kind of a bad idea because I spent money for those. The second thing is most your top line vendors have what's called band steering. I want to encourage 5 gigahertz devices to connect to a 5. Nothing wrong with that. But if only half my radios are 5 gigahertz, I'm putting a lot of devices on those 5 gigahertz radios, and the more devices I put on a 5 gigahertz radio, the more I'm sharing the bandwidth, and I degrade the performance. So once again, it's all about having more 5 gigahertz radios.
Right, and but how about on the shall we say the access side? How do you bring the devices that are capable of 5 gigahertz over? I mean, you'd have to know that they're capable of that. So there's a service layer involved in this as well, right?
Exactly, and that was kind of one of my points, and I was kind of surprised that most management applications don't actually tell me that. So the whole idea is I want to have an application that says these 70% of people are connected on 5, 30% are connected on 2.4, but 90% of my clients are 5 gig capable. What that tells me is there's something wrong with my design. I need to move more radios into the 5 gigahertz space, and that's where we get into the discussion of whether you call it multi-state or software-defined radios, because that's the key. I mean, we're starting to hear more and more about that. That's the whole key point. I mean, put my marketing hat on for a minute. Xirrus has been doing this for 10 years, but you're seeing more vendors do it now, and that's the only way to address this. As I say, going back to that Google event, when you have 99.7% of devices 5 gigahertz capable, you can't design 50-50 anymore. It makes no sense.
Right. So what do you think are the most critical use cases for 5 gigahertz? Or is it fair to say nowadays that everywhere is the case?
It is everywhere. I mean, a lot of times people start talking about density, but the whole idea is you have to address the clients. If you can't get them on and give them, it's all about the quality of experience, the user experience. So, we talk about density a lot. And, when people say density, they're thinking about 80,000 people in, the Rose Bowl. But density is even in a classroom type of environment. So that's why it's all of environments. If I've got 25 students in a classroom, today's day and age, that's probably 50 devices. Throw in a couple more, and that's 55 devices in that environment. Now, chances are 95% of those devices are 5 gig capable. So 95% of the devices would be connected to the 5 gig radio, and 2 or 3 devices would connect to the 2.4. One oversubscribed, one undersubscribed. So whether it's a school, whether it's an enterprise, whether it's a coffee shop, the numbers we're seeing are, one of the things that's happened with the clients, and kind of going back to what you said, is people are turning over their clients every 6 months now. You get a new phone, new tablet, new smartphone, or laptop. They're all 5 gig capable, so you have to design for it. So pretty much any environment should be 5 gigahertz centric. However, 2.4 is not going away. I mean, there's a lot of wearable stuff that's 2.4. You see a lot of this stuff that's saying 2.4 is dead. It's not, but you have to design your production networks for 5 gigahertz, but you still have to have your guest network, the wearables, watches, Fitbits. There's a lot of stuff that's still 2.4. And with the whole IoT thing, I guarantee you're actually going to see some growth in this area. So once again, think 90% 5 gig, but you're going to have to keep that 2.4 for a while.
So in the end, it's really about the quality of the service, right? Of the consumer, or the person accessing the network experiences, right? Do you have any hard data, so to speak, any hard facts that you can share on properly designed 5 gig networks as opposed to poorly mixed 2.45 or pure 2.4?
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, quality of service is what it's all about. I mean, I've seen studies, and you can believe studies all you want, that says, having no Wi-Fi in some places is better than poor Wi-Fi. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is quality of experience. It's how the application runs and all that stuff. But going back to an example, I'll give you an actual use case that we had before. We actually did Dreamforce a while back. And Dreamforce, they're talking about 35,000 users and all that stuff. And, we've done that before. The biggest challenge was they said during a keynote, they want to have 4,500 people in the room. And not just watching it, but they're going to actually exchange data during the keynote. So that means I have to have 4,500 people on the Wi-Fi. And we actually were able to do that. We were able to do that. But the only way you could do that is with 5 gigahertz. There's no way you can do it. So whether it's a measurement or a pass-fail, trying to do that with, trying to put, 50 radios in that room, 25 being 2.4, 25 being 5 gig, it would totally fail. So the whole idea is you have to design for what's needed. And it really is math. Every vendor, every consultant has their story. But if you look at Wi-Fi today, you've got 27 available channels, period. 3 of them operate the 2.4 band, 24 operating the 5 gigahertz band. 95% of your clients today are shipping 5 gigahertz capable. And a 50-50 design just won't cut it anymore. That's really what it's all about. And that's something that we have to accept and deal with.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, do you think that we need to also start looking at additional band in the 5 gigahertz? I know the FCC has started a process with sharing in the high 5.9 gigahertz band. We're just now talking about using the 5 gigahertz band specifically with you here today properly, right? And getting all the clients over there and so forth. When do you think it's going to be relevant, to start freeing up additional band, because 5 gigahertz will also eventually be too little?
Well, there's actually 2 things happening, one positive and one negative. The negative is what you said. There's also, at least in North America, the FCC is looking at adding, 10, 12 more channels between Uni 1 and Uni 3 type in that space. But at the same time, as you just said, the cellular world is looking to kind of borrow the 5 gigahertz space with LTEU and some other technologies, so they're going to have to share together. But we're definitely going to need more space. I mean, if you go back a ways, you went from a 900 megahertz to the 2.4 to the 5 gig. That's where devices are going. You still need to remember that 2.4 does have 3 usable channels, and you want to definitely take advantage of that, maybe for your guest network or hotspots. But we need to come up with more channels, and we need to be smarter about it. And that's a key point. Wi-Fi, 5 gigahertz. That's just the foundation. That's one step. That's what you have to do it. But then on top of that, you have to get smarter with managing applications, managing services and stuff. So it is, a multi-tier effort that 5 gigahertz is going to give me the bandwidth, but I have to have services on top of that that intelligently control that bandwidth. I mean, there's some people that actually say we have lots of bandwidth, we just don't use it smart enough. And if you look at, 11AC is where everybody is right now, 11AX, which is coming along 3-4 years from now, part of that standard is how do I be smarter with this? How can I eliminate or reduce the management traffic associated with Wi-Fi, which could be 30, 40, 50%. So that's kind of what that's all about is give you the infrastructure, which is 5 gig, and then be smarter on top. I'd love to get those extra channels in the 5 gigahertz space, but we all know it's a bureaucracy, and we all could be gone from this earth by the time that happens.
Well, that's the thing, it's going to take a while, right? So, all right, Perry, just tell us what's next for Xirrus. You guys are obviously famous for your high density work at venues and so forth, and also for providing Wi-Fi at schools across America. I know you've had a lot of success with that in various other places. Where do you see the next growth opportunity for you guys?
Well, what we've seen across, to your point, we kind of built our name on the high density, whether it was large public venues or whether it was schools. Schools was the biggest challenge because they had high density and performance requirements. But now we're actually seeing the demand everywhere. It's actually kind of going down to the SMB. We're seeing more requirements for in hospitality. One of the big things right now, and it's back to what I said before, was services. One of the things we're seeing in hospitality is the idea of what's called personal area networks. When you check into a hotel, you don't join the hotel's Wi-Fi, which is basically open and the person in the next room can see what you're doing. The whole idea is if I have an SSID configured on my phone or my tablet or my laptop, why can't I create that SSID in my room that gives me my own secure little bubble, something that in hospitality they refer to as personal area network. And that's the biggest thing right now. It's the public's network and adding security to it. Because that's one of the challenges. Everybody says, public networks are unsecure, but do you use it? Yes. Well, can we fix that a little bit? And that's kind of one of the directions Xirrus is now. It's all about the services and how I can easily get people on the network, not just easily, but securely, whether it's your coffee shop, your dorm room, hotel room, or actually a large public venue with 25,000 people there. That's kind of the big challenges we have today. And I wanted to add, I'm actually going to the SAT conference, which is the sports entertainment thing this weekend. And if you look at that, and you look what they're doing in stadiums around the world, it's all about fan engagement, fan services, and what I can do on my devices. Once again, you've got to build that infrastructure if all this stuff is going to work on top of it. It's all about, once again, I keep repeating myself, it's the infrastructure. I need to have enough bandwidth, and I need to be smarter with how I use that bandwidth.
Well, Perry, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to have you. There's so many great things going on in Wi-Fi and so much progress being made, and I think Xirrus very much represents that right now. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you once again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again real soon.
Absolutely. We'll bring you back when you can. It's great stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you. Once again, we'll go up to the next level of services.
All right. Okay. All right, everybody. That's Perry Correll, principal technologist for Xirrus, and he's always a great guy to speak to about Wi-Fi. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. That's it for this week's show. Next week, I'm on holiday, but after that, I'll be interviewing another great Wi-Fi guest. And I don't know just who that's going to be yet, but that will certainly get somebody. So enjoy and see you next time.
Wi-Fi Now is a production of RCR TV News. To suggest a show topic or to learn more about Wi-Fi Now events, you can reach Claus Hetting at klaus@hettingconsulting.com. To find out more about Wi-Fi Now and all things wireless, visit rcrwireless.com.